Alright, so this video is going to be for instructors who completed the online training this year, whose students had not had EBLE previous to the online training. So, and you will be whole class instructors. So if you teach small group or one-on-one predominantly, you're going to want to do the the chapter 6 video. That would be the one you want to go to. So for those of you whole class instructors who fit into this scenario, if you haven't already, I would ask that you print out chapters 1 and 2. So go ahead and pause this video and print out just the pages that are chapters 1 and 2, which goes from page 1 through page 35 of your ebook. Now keep in mind when you go to print it, the first official 5 pages are the table of contents. So I guess it would be page 5 to 40 when you go to print it. So go ahead and print out those pages and have them in front of you, and then we will be good to go. So once you have that printed, what we're going to do is we're going to go through filling out a template and lesson planning together. So we're going to do scenario 1, and for those of you in scenario 2 who see several classes of students throughout the day, you'll get a pretty good idea of how the process goes from the first scenario, and a lot of the information will be relevant to you as well. So we'll just do the one scenario today. So what's going to happen for all scenarios is the first page is going to tell you what is included. So you're going to have your weekly planning template will be the next page that we're going to fill out together. It's going to talk about following the 4 sets of directions and the samples that go along with it. And then number 3, this is the authentic lesson planning template. So your actual weekly plan may sometimes call for an authentic lesson, and in that case you can fill out the authentic lesson template separately. So this on page 15 is the one that you're going to have in front of you as we're filling it out. This is your weekly planning template, and I recommend making several copies of this because you're going to use it over and over as you plan for your EBLE weeks. So as you see, there's a space at the top to plan your whole class lesson every day. You've got where you can plan for your small group instruction, and then at the very bottom you have a place for independent activities as students are working with you, small group and the teacher-led groups. The rest of them will be doing independent activities. So what we did is we actually gave you guidelines for which activities to use when you first get started teaching your whole class lessons, because even though in the online training you taught a lot of the foundational activities, there are more sounds and patterns to teach with those same activities. So you'll be repeating all the activities you learned in the online training, you'll just be repeating them with different words and different sounds. So what this talks about is how there's 2 phases. So in the first phase, you'll be finishing up that foundational instruction where it's EBLE standalone lessons, essentially. After that, it's all going to be infusion. So you're going to be pulling your words out of your content, and you're going to be EBLEizing them, if that makes sense. You're going to break them up into syllables and sounds if they're multisyllable and teach them that way. So that's the second phase that's ongoing. It's just continually infusing EBLE into everything that you do. So in this phase 1, you'll see that you have actually a mix of options. You have foundational options of activities, and then you have infusion activities. So you're going to start the infusion right away. It's just going to have the foundational mixed in. So you can see up here your notes are choose 2 sounds per week to teach, and then once those are all completed, you'll move on to phase 2. So since there are 6 sounds to teach, after 3 weeks, you'll be able to move on to phase 2. And same with the same spelling, different sound, you actually choose 1 spelling per week. So after 3 weeks, you'll be on to phase 2. Now, that is only going to take up 3 days of the week. So on the other 2 days, you can choose from these single-day infusion activities or 2-day activities. So to give you an example of what that looks like in your template, if you go down to page, let's see what page we're on here. 18 is your sample of filling in your first week. So choosing from our list on page 15 here, we have our s, j, f, ul, and sh, and we'll just choose 2 of them. And it doesn't really matter which 2 you choose as long as you don't repeat the same ones. So you'll see on the sample page, on Monday we're doing j, and then on Friday we're doing So same sound, different spelling, 2 different sounds. And then if we go back up to that planning page, it's going to tell you that words for the blue highlighted activities can be found in section 5. And this is the reason that we don't want you printing out the entire thing so you don't have to flip back and forth. Whenever it tells you which section you can find things in, there's also a page number. So if I, as we talked in the webinar, if I do the page number but add 5 and I type it into my little box up here, it's going to take me to 452, but I'm just going to have to say 457, and that is how I will get there. So 457 takes me to section 5. Okay, if I am doing J, here's my J on page 500. If I'm doing here's my on page 478. So let's just look at one of those so that you can see what that's directing you to. So we'll do 483 so we can look at those words. Okay, so here's my here are my words that I can teach with my sort. So 2nd and 3rd grade words, the next page will be 4th through 5th grade words, and then we're going to have our 6th through 8th grade words. So whatever grade you teach, just choose the word list and be sure you can use your STEPS documents if you need them from the online training. If you don't have your STEPS documents still printed out, you can find them in section 2 of your ebook. So print just what you need, the one page that you need here. Be sure and follow these directions up here that says, you know, for each of these columns, just choose 2 of the words to sort. For each of these columns, just sort 1 of the words. So you're not doing all of these words, you're just choosing a couple of them. So if we go back again to our planning template, okay, so that takes care of Monday and Friday. Those are our sorts. Now my same spelling, different sound. Okay, for those words, I'm actually going to go to the same section. Up here, it tells me that section 5 is 452, so I'm going to go to the same place. Okay, and same sound, different spelling. If I scroll down a little further, I have my same spelling, different sound. So for my CH, 588, so I'll do 593 because I'm adding 5. Here's my CH, same spelling. So now, similar looking sort, except this is the one where I have the same spelling at the top and it represents the different sounds. So again, following the directions, sort 2 of the words each, don't go in order. Print out those STEPS documents if you need to. And then, if I didn't mention this before, but at the bottom you have your tendencies. So, you know, printing out this page is going to be kind of your guidebook for how to move forward. I'll go back to my planning template. Okay. So again, if I go back up, so that's my planning template. If I go back up to how I'm planning, again, as a reminder, I chose my 2 sounds, my and my J. I chose my 1 spelling, my CH. Okay, so what I would recommend, honestly, is I would just cross off those things that I've done already, or maybe I mark them with a sticky or something so I can be clear on what I'm going to do next week. Now I get to choose for my other 2 days the infusion activities. So if I'm doing single day activities that just take 1 day, I'm just going to choose 2 of them for the other 2 days. And if I do these 2-day activities, it's 1 activity that takes up the whole 2 days. So if it's an authentic lesson, I'm going to do some of it on day 1, the rest of it on day 2. The spelling folder, some of it on day 1, the rest of it on day 2. And again, you'll notice every single one of these activities, there are things that students have done before, so it's not going to be totally new to them. So what we had chosen in the sample is on Tuesday, the vocab expansion game. And because that's a pretty quick one, we actually even did an extra one where the students write a passage because they're going to use it with their student spelling folders tomorrow. So we did one one-day activity and 1 2-day activity. And just to take a minute and note that, you know, be flexible with this process. If you do the activity and it takes you 5 minutes, okay, cool, maybe I'll go and grab another one to do. And, you know, so be flexible and be open to that as well. And I wanted to touch on one other thing back up here in my planning. Okay, so over here under the notes, like if I'm doing my vocab graphic organizer, it's going to tell me in my notes, all right, use these with the challenging multisyllable words for which my students need a deeper understanding of word meaning. So my ones that I want them to really understand the vocabulary of and have a deeper dive. If I'm looking for my worksheet, it's in section 4. So I'll do 363 plus the 5, 368. Here's section 4. Here are my documents for students. Here is my vocab graphic organizer worksheets. So really start getting used to the idea of typing in these page numbers up here to navigate through the ebook, because again, you're just going to have those couple of chapters printed. The rest of it, you'll print just what you need. All right, so now I have my planning done for my week 1. And again, if you choose to do different activities than the ones we've chosen in the sample, all good. Just as long as you have 2 of the same sound, different spelling, and 1 of the same spelling, different sound, you're all set. All right, so let's move on. Oh, and of course here we have a sample from phase 2. So after you get done doing all of those sorts, then you're just going to be choosing from those 1 and 2 day infusion activities. And you'll see here we're doing listen, tally, say, and write with our spelling words. We have an authentic lesson over 2 days, teaching multisyllable, and then on Friday a couple of different activities, the expansion game, and then writing. So start to play around with that once you get the 3 weeks in, and you're going to start infusing it just whenever you're reading, writing, spelling. All right, so phase 2 will be more the fade away, less foundational, more just infusing into what you're already doing anyway. So what you want to do next is create your small groups if you haven't already. So if you already have small groups, you can just kind of ignore this part and you can fill your small groups in to your planning template here. So here I am on page 21, and as you can see, my group 1, I have my 4 students filled in. Group 2, I have my 4 students filled in here, etc. So you can fill your groups in. Of course, if you have more than 6 groups, then you can print out a couple of pages or, back to back, whatever, with the template. Noting here that I wrote in a note that group 6 is they're my independent readers. You can write in whatever notes you need to. There's also a section over here for notes. However it works best for your brain to organize. I check off the days that I see everybody, all that good stuff. But if you need help and guidance creating your small groups, if you haven't already, use these notes right here to create them. You can use your assessment scores and group students by ability level. We like that the best. There are notes here about what to have your independent readers be doing, because of course there's going to be some differentiation. Not all groups are going to look the same as far as your instruction with them. All right, so instructions on how to create those groups, you fill the groups in. So now let's talk about planning those small group lessons. So this is the guided reading where you're doing your lessons whole class. That's more that focused vocabulary and word work. You can do some reading, but we prefer the reading in small groups. So you want to choose something that they haven't read previously. This can be anything from your content area, whether it be science, social studies, etc. It can be a Scholastic news article. It can be a story from their English book. It can be a passage from something. It can be a novel that they're working on, just as long as they haven't read it before. And of course, differentiate for your different groups. So, your lower groups are going to have something different than your higher groups. All of that. So keep that in mind. We do ask that when you're doing the guided reading and it's teacher-led, you choose a text 1 to 2 grade levels higher than where they're testing, so that you can guide them up. We don't want our students staying at the same level of reading. We want to give them something more challenging when we're with them so that we can pull them up to that higher level. So this is an important note too for your more struggling readers. You may just choose that small group time at first to do more word work and just a little bit of reading, and then your higher groups you'll do just a little bit of word work and more reading. So, and that balance will start to shift, as your lower kids start getting better and more adept at all of it and their skills and sounding out their words, then you can shift to having them do more and more reading, but you might be doing more word work at first. So you're going to pull out those 10 highest multisyllable words from the text that you choose for each one, and you're going to use that authentic lesson planning template and fill out for those words. Now again, some of your groups might be doing the same thing, so you may have a different authentic lesson for 2 or 3 different groups of authentic lessons, but 1 or 2 groups or even 3 might be reading the same thing. So what you want to do is to plan that authentic lesson. We'll look for an example here on page 32. So this is an example from the first chapter of Bridge to Terabithia. So if I were going to read that with my students, here are my words that I'm going to pull out, my 2 words that I'm going to do with multisyllable spelling, and then I have 8 words for split word reading. Again, this is the sample just so you can have something to look at here. And then here's the student lesson that I can set down in front of students while they read. And again, reading these words ahead of time. And then after that sample, just so that you can have that visual, you have blank ones that you can be, you've got them printed out in front of you, and you can fill these in with your own words. Of course, if you've got several small groups reading several different things, you're going to want to print a couple or make copies for a couple different authentic lessons. Oh man, and what page was I on? I am so sorry about all this scrolling. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. I have my whole class is done. I have my groups entered in, and right here, I'm going to write for each of my days what it is that I'm going to be doing with my students. So I'm going to do my 2 words of spelling, 8 with split word reading from the text, do my reading from the text, and then day 2 I'll continue my reading. Day 3 we'll finish up and summarize. Now, looking at groups 1, 2, and 3, I have them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They might be my more struggling readers. It's going to take them more time. Groups 4, 5, and 6, my higher groups, I'm going to have 2 days a week because they can get through more in less time. So keep that in mind. And then finally, you're going to plan your small group independent student activities. So if you'd like to use the ones that there are some activities that independent activities that go along with the whole class lessons. So if you're interested in that, check out section 3, okay? So if I go to section 3, here we go. You can see the same sound different spelling activities, what pages they're on. You'll print out what you need for the students, all that good stuff. Let me go back to my other page. Okay, so that is how that's going to work. You'll fill in those independent activities into the bottom part. Now, you don't have to use our independent activities. They're there if you'd like them. We just wanted to give them to you, but you can choose other things. You can use the Ebley iPad apps. You can use, they can have it for free homework time, whatever works for your class and your situation. If they're already doing things independently, fit it into the structure that you already have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So once you decide what you're going to have as the independent student activities, you'll just fill them in here, down here, under each day. And if you do centers, you can put in 2 or 3 different ones, whatever the options are for your students. Fill that in. And that is that. So there you go. Once you fill all that stuff in, you'll have your first week done and planned for. Scenario 2, where you have different class periods, you can see starting on page 26 here what your plan looks like. Your template's a little bit different. Of course, if you have your different classes, you're going to be more focused on the whole class instruction. So you'll have your whole class template, you'll have your activities to teach, foundational, and then phase 2 is infusion. So you're going to go at a little bit of a slower pace because you don't have the entire day to get through to your students here. It's just going to go a little bit slower. So then you have, of course, your sample templates. They may be the same, they may be different depending on what different sections you have. So in our example, we have class 1 is one section of this class, class 2 is the second section. Now I have another type of class with section 1, section 2, and then I have a third class. So this may not exactly match your situation, but again, be flexible and use it to fit into your situation. And as you can see, with this, we have you on day 1, 2, and 3, you're doing your foundational activities. Day 1, 3, and 5, and then on days 2 and 4, you're teaching your regular curriculum. And then, of course, when you get done with your Ebley activity, then you go on to your regular curriculum. So we're not asking you to set everything aside to teach Ebley, but you will have to get those foundational lessons in. It only takes a couple of weeks, and then you'll be good to go just infusing the Ebley strategies and activities into the things that you already need to teach. If you can manage some small group instruction, go for it. It's a little bit different, of course, when you have, the higher grade levels and where they're switching classes. So that'll look a little different for you. And then again, you have your authentic lesson template here. If you have any questions as you move forward with this process, you can always email us at info@ebley.com and we are happy to help. So I hope this was helpful and good luck to you.